Hey, my friends, I want to talk a little on the topic of discomfort and how to really tell the difference between the discomfort of growth and the discomfort of being out of alignment. And amidst all of these experts and spiritual gurus and self development coaches, so often giving us a very confusing picture of what we should be doing when it comes to discomfort, it can really leave us in a very confused and disempowered place where we're either keeping ourselves stuck and small out of avoiding discomfort or going in the completely wrong direction, thinking that because it's outside of our comfort zone, it must be good, it must be growth. So let's dive into this. First of all, let's look at our comfort zone. What actually is our comfort zone? It's usually quite often pretty uncomfortable, but it is what's familiar, and that is why it's perhaps perceived at least easier to stay within the realms of that zone of familiarity. And it doesn't necessarily mean it's comfortable. An example would be staying in a really toxic relationship. It's not comfortable, but yet because that is what's familiar, and then there's the fear of the unknown on the other side of actually coming out of it that is perceived as worse, that's what makes us think this would be a comfort zone, even though it's uncomfortable to be in. So then we've got these self-development gurus who, tell us we need to get out of our comfort zone. But discomfort alone is not a reliable metric. It's not a reliable thing to measure whether we're going in the right direction or not. Equally, what feels good, and this is again this kind of spiritual bypassing of, do everything that feels good. Only do what feels good. Only follow what feels good. And while I think there is truth to that, we also need to bear in mind that sometimes what feels good in our body is actually a trauma response. An example of this would be emotional eaters, sitting on the couch binging on chocolate and sugar and yummy snacks all day. That feels good, but it's not necessarily good. It's actually an avoidance of those deeper feelings and those things that we're actually ignoring for that temporary satisfaction. And so depending on who we are, depending on where we're at this point in our life, depends on how reliable using the metrics of comfort and discomfort is. The same thing goes with intuition. Intuition is always there, but we've been so programmed and conditioned and brainwashed to be so separate from our intuitive wisdom that when it shows up, it's going to be hard to recognize for a lot of us. It takes a lot of practice, and sometimes it is really, really hard to discern what is fear-based, for an example, and what is intuition. What is our ego protecting us, keeping us in that familiar zone, versus what is our intuition keeping us out of danger. Going based on feeling alone is not enough for most people. Most people don't know the difference. Most people won't even know the difference between growing pains and the discomfort of being out of alignment with who you are and what you're supposed to be doing in the direction that you're supposed to be moving in. But there are ways of getting more clear on this through studying and analysing where we're at now, who we are, our greatest challenges, our greatest gifts, and relying on the universal wisdom and the amazing, incredible tools that we have, such as astrology, numerology, gene keys, human design, all of these tools which paint us a picture of our potentials and of our challenges. And so when we're able to see that and we know what we're growing towards, then the discomfort of growth, we will be able to match with that versus the discomfort of doing something that's actually out of alignment. I'll give you an example. My familiar zone was my South Node in Libra, and so I've had to grow into my North Node in Aries. I'm also a life path 3, which means my purpose is to create and communicate. And with a North Node in Aries, doing that in a new way, leading the way, not necessarily saying things that are very likable and digestible and comfortable for people. That's not what I'm here to do. So coming out of my familiar zone, which was completely people-pleasing and keeping my voice very small and being very shy and very self-conscious with absolutely no confidence, particularly around speaking, I could not speak. genuinely even thought there was something wrong with my brain. I was going to get it checked to see if I had some kind of brain damage from past traumas and stress, because when I would go to speak publicly, my mouth would completely disconnect from my brain. Completely disconnect. And this would also happen if I was speaking to somebody that I didn't particularly want to speak to. I had the words, but they could not come out. And so this has taken years of me doing this. Now, had I just followed what feels good in my body, then it would be, okay, I'm not supposed to speak because it's so uncomfortable. That's not me. That's for other people to do. It's not for me. But growing into this person that can speak and share this message that is so important for me to share, it's been incredibly uncomfortable. There has been so much discomfort. But when we're growing into who we're supposed to be, there's going to be growing pains there, because our familiar zone, our south node on your natal chart, this is your zone of familiarity, which is on the other side of who we're actually supposed to be stepping into. So it's going to be uncomfortable to grow into that version of us, which is so intertwined with our purpose. But also, how we're going to be most fulfilled is to step into that. Nothing is going to feel fulfilling enough until we step into that and embody that energy in this lifetime. That is our north node. And so it's kind of like the pain of teething, right? If you've got kids, you understand, it's so awful what little babies have to go through with their teething. It's so painful, but yet life with teeth is better than life just with gums, because you can chew food, you can make cool sounds. And so though the growth of teething hurts, it's discomfort, it's pain, it's necessary and it shouldn't be avoided. I mean, it can't be avoided, but it's necessary in order for us to evolve into this human with teeth, human that can chew food and speak with a full range of sounds. And so that kind of stepping out of our comfort zone, knowing that we're actually growing towards who we came here to be, and not everyone knows this up front. And even if you do, I feel like it's so important to actually have this clarified with these tools, because depending on if you've had any kind of trauma that has affected your self-esteem or the way that you view yourself and your gifts and the world, then it's going to be really hard to be sure that that's what you're here for. If I genuinely struggled so much at speaking, and I've experienced so much things that have knocked me down, I've had people treat me horrendously, and I've had so many reasons to believe that I'm probably just not good at this thing, then my human brain, which is made up of all of these experiences that I've had in life, is going to logically be like, surely that's just not for me. But then with knowing the information that these tools can give us a fully rounded view of our cosmic blueprint, these codes for us stepping into the highest evolvement of this human experience for this lifetime, to live what our soul came here to. Learning the tools matters. It's so helpful for anybody who might potentially doubt what they're here for. And the reason why just stepping out of your comfort zone also isn't reliable is because you can absolutely go down somebody else's idea of growth or idea of success. This, again, is so easily done. In the age of all of these kind of coaches and gurus and experts who all claim to have figured it out, but yet we all have something very individual to figure out. We're all here with very different blueprint of purpose and how we can step into that from our challenges into our gifts. And so without addressing that, it can be very easy to go down these paths of whatever somebody else has laid out because they've figured out their journey. But it doesn't mean that it's yours. And so stepping out of your comfort zone might actually just be stepping down the wrong way, down somebody else's path of they've figured it out for themselves, and actually away from what you're supposed to be doing. But because it's discomfort, it's perceived as growth. And this can result in some pretty messy things like burnout, like being physically really unwell, like wasting a ton of money, a ton of time, and a ton of energy. This is the risk of going down somebody else's path, of them figuring it out. And in this culture, especially in the self-development culture, and I have been there, trust me, I've been there, that's why I'm speaking from experience, because I was still in my old kind of South Node, Libra, shadow, people-pleasing era. When I first started that kind of real growth journey and that self-development journey and dipping my toes into business for the first time, I was definitely manipulated to believe that if I do these things that feel not right to me, like cold messaging people and like giving every hour under the sun to building these things and hustle, 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 hustle. And even, honestly, this is a whole story in itself, but even getting myself into a space of burnout where my business upline, and this is what I mean about going down other people's ideas of success and not your own, you know, receiving messages from her when I was in hospital. Like, I had got myself so unwell that I ended up in hospital, and she was still messaging me saying, don't use this as an excuse to take your foot off the gas. And I was still in this place of like thinking that that's okay, that somebody can speak to you like that because they're encouraging your growth. But are they though? Or are they actually encouraging your demise? Are they actually encouraging you to step into a version that isn't even you? And because it feels uncomfortable, and we've listened to all of these audiobooks and seminars, and you know, growth is uncomfortable. And so we're feeling this discomfort and thinking, I must be growing, this must be it. And that is why it is so important to always come back to our individual selves and what our souls truly came here for. And only then will we know. Only then will we be able to judge the right kind of discomfort and the wrong kind of discomfort. Equally, the right kind of what feels good in our bodies, and when what feels good is actually avoidance. Because after all, us humans, we have free will. And this free will is what at the end of the day determines whether or not we're going to be stepping into our highest version and truly living our destiny in this lifetime that our soul came here to fulfill. And so we got to be careful who we're allowing us to lead us down these paths, because it could be the path of avoidance, of only love and light, only what feels good, or it could be the path of somebody else's version of success, somebody else's version of growth and discomfort that is actually just painful with no reward. Pain and no gain. So whoever you're learning from, if they're not teaching you to always come back to self throughout the journey, then they're teaching you their way. Never lose the self in any journey. I'm going to leave it there. Sending you so much love. Mwah.